For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning. Asia-Pacific markets fairly mixed at the moment. The big headlines: Australia has upped its interest rates by 0.5%, and also China has set its currency medium levels slightly lower. Japan's Nikkei recovered from earlier losses, and generally speaking, the markets again fairly mixed, really, just weighing up what's going on. The Kospi in South Korea up slightly. The Reserve Bank, as I say, of Australia raised to 2.35%. MSCI's broadest index is relatively flat. Asia's video game giants are on the hunt again. I'm talking here Sony, NetEase rather, and Tencent. They're continuing their acquisitions abroad. Consumer growth is slowing in their various domestic countries, and they're looking at the big acquisitions. I feel I can tell you already. Sony and Tencent have invested in From Software, and NetEase have acquired the French developer Quantic Dream. So big movements expected in there. Oil producer OPEC Plus, all that meeting yesterday produced quite a surprise. Actually, I thought that they would stick with their production levels. In fact, it was 100,000 barrels, around about that kind of cut in production. They're looking at the bottom line is that they're looking to keep the price about $100 a barrel. I'll come on to why I'm not sure that's going to happen later on in my particular bulletin. India has been looking carefully at the Russian oil price cap. It's rejecting the fact that it has a moral duty to boycott Moscow. What it's saying is they're going to look at it very carefully, but their duty, or rather their energy minister's duty, is to his consumers, as he puts it. I have a moral duty to my consumer. India consumed around 5 million barrels of oil a day, and Russia accounted for just 0.2% of India's oil exports at the end of March. According to the UN, global food prices are falling. This is a little bit down to the fact that, as you know, wheat was beginning to flow. How it's doing right now, I'm not quite sure, but it's beginning to flow out of Ukraine. So the UK's Food and Agricultural Organization says July's UN-backed deal for reopening Ukrainian ports has actually brought global prices down. That's what they're saying. As far as the US is concerned, futures slightly rising, but basically major averages of another week of straight losses. Basically, OVS Health said Monday that it's buying Signify Health. Volkswagen shared its plan to float Porsche at an IPO. But basically, everyone's back at work this week. School's back now. Everybody's back. And September is usually a very, very bad month for the market. So we'll see. But as I say, everybody's back from their holidays, and we're going to see some particularly strong movements, I would suggest. Turning our attention to the EU, President Macron in France has urged the French to cut energy use by 10%. He's urging his country to do that for all the obvious reasons. European markets are feeling the fallout from the war on Ukraine, and the euro has slid to about 99 cents against the dollar. That's its lowest historical level. Now, as you know, it's a big week of political turmoil in the UK. New Prime Minister. Deutsche Bank says there's a risk of a sterling crisis in the UK. Liz Truss is the new Prime Minister. It'll be formally announced today, although we saw the election yesterday. There are no good solutions to what's going on. Kwasi Kwarteng probably will be is in for Chancellor. It's the third female Prime Minister. We're going to see that. I mean, that the main priority is clearly the economy, clearly energy. It's likely that the repayment of bills may be spread. There's going to be help for consumers now, whether that means not paying higher prices for a little while. But again, this money is actually going to have to be paid back at some stage. And with the current current account deficit already at record levels. Sterling needs large capital inflows. It's not getting that at the moment. And so an expectation of recession is not helping things generally as far as sterling is concerned. I mentioned oil and OPEC plus. Honestly, I've been talking to people this morning and energy analysts and so on. The oil price is completely unpredictable at the moment. There are too many moving parts, a mix of subsidy, OPEC plus, and also Russian sanctions, and also a looming recession. It's very, very difficult to second guess. Slightly more easy to look at are industrial metals like aluminium, copper, and iron ore. That market is cratering right now. It had grown as the sort of post-pandemic growth happened, but as recession approaches throughout the world, those prices are beginning to fall. That is the global view this morning.
Okay, Michael, good morning. Great to see you once again. The UK has got a new Prime Minister amidst many problems, and all our ideas, most of our ideas are barely practical, really, but it remains to be seen. What do you think she'll have to do as regards, at first, one of the highest inflation rates in the G7, the highest in a while, close to 40 years, and secondly, the fact that the UK has got energy. So the problem here is not that the UK doesn't have energy. They've got energy. They've got 2 floating LPGs. They've got, direct access to Norway, but the pricing is a problem. So what we should do as regards to pricing here? These are 2 problems that confront Madam Truss as she gets in this morning.
Well, it's all very complicated. I mean, there are no surprises about this. There are no there's no hidden magic. There's no money tree. I suspect what will happen, and we will get the energy plans by Thursday, so I'm told. So in other words, we're not going to get those straight away, but clearly the economy is the absolutely number one priority. Where the money is going to come from, well, what it does, it normally comes from future generations, doesn't it really? I mean, if prices are frozen today, they're going to have to be paid for in the future. And I'm sure there are arguments about the cheap level of debt and all the rest of it in the country. But the fact of the matter is future generations are going to have to pay for this. So we may get some relief today, but the future will be paying for it. I think what she will do, I mean, of course, the Bank of England will remain, I'm certain, independent from all this. I mean, they'll go their own way. But they'll have a complete eye on the strength of the economy. I think what could be quite important is her relationship with the civil service. I mean, like it or not, and a lot of people don't like what happens in the civil service, it is, after all, the delivery arm of government, and it's good to keep it on side because there are lots of good people working in it in the same way there are lots of bad people working in it, in the same way that there are in all sorts of industries as well. But I think it's very, very important that what she said in the past and said in the debates up to her during her leadership challenge, that what she would do is she would sort out, in inverted commas, the civil servant. She'd sort out the Bank of England and make it much more driven towards keeping the economy in the UK going and make it grow. How you get growth, tax cuts and all the rest of it, I simply don't know. My suspicion is that it will be paid for in the future. And as far as you quite rightly observe, Rafai, the business about energy in this country, yes, there's plenty there. It's a question of deregulating. It's a question of cutting through planning and turning upside down a lot of the agreements that were made when we all thought that green energy was the answer. It clearly isn't. It probably will be in the future, but not right now. What's needed right now is to get through a couple of very, very cold winters.
Well, the morning after, I mean, I know that trade bodies in the UK are asking for government help from breweries to hospitality industry and everyone else. But I wanted to ask you, the morning after, how are the markets reacting? How is the pound the morning after? Is it flat or stronger than it was before Liz Truss's emergent? And how supportive of the markets or industry would Liz Truss proposals be in the long run? Or, all of this is just campaign promises. And then secondly, Sri Lanka. The IMF has approved a loan of $2.9 billion for Sri Lanka. I think you mentioned it the other day, and people thought there is hope in that regard. But there is that condition that Sri Lanka is owing almost over $100 billion and having very serious, liquidity crisis. But that IMF can only follow up on its assurances if it's able to get debt forgiveness from India, Japan, and China. Would that happen? Are those three countries, are they really enthusiastic about helping Sri Lanka? Because without their help, Sri Lanka may just, be in deeper trouble than we imagine. Particularly now that Gotabaya is back and they've given him a flat to stay in, and an MP has stepped down for him. The country obviously is not moving either politically or economically.
I think the book's still being, or at least the stories are still being written about Sri Lanka. I mean, what would you have the IMF do? I mean, they have been criticised in the past, and there are lots of debates. Probably not on this programme, we don't have the time. But whether it's actually up to speed with what's actually going on in the world, but they do impose quite serious conditions. You're absolutely right. I mean, they first of all will lend money, and they will enter into a rescue plan, but they have to have some kind of indication from India. In India and China, that they are in the mood for some kind of debt forgiveness, or at the very least a haircut on the debt that they're sitting on, as far as Sri Lanka is concerned. I think everybody understands it's important. It's an important economy. It was doing extremely well before the corruption started and before it was run into the ground. And I see no reason why it shouldn't survive. There is a very, very biddable and a profitable workforce in the country, and I think that it could be an economic powerhouse again. But as you say, it will need that kind of forgiveness. That isn't going to happen tomorrow. I suspect it'll be dependent, but I think it is a very important part. As far as businesses and the UK are concerned, I mean, Liz Truss again has been asked. I mean, she will have been approached by every sector imaginable wanting help. Hospitality certainly is up there, because everybody, it said everybody wants to go out after pandemics and all the rest of it. I suspect that the reality will probably bite as far as hospitality is concerned. And when people have less money in their pockets, they may well be going out less. And maybe hospitality will have to adjust to that. But as far as business is concerned, as I said, the economy is a number one priority, and the number one sector of the economy, generally put, the small businesses, as you know, just as they are in your country. She wants to encourage growth. She wants to encourage entrepreneurs. That does mean cutting business rates probably initially. Again, it's this old problem which she's going to have to face, which is whether you cut them now and then don't get the income, you don't get the tax income, and then have to pay for it in the future. I mean, that's what's happening right now. Sterling continues to slide, and it's as you noted, and it will continue to slide until there are firm indications that the economy is presumably back on its feet. So I don't see a great deal of change in that any future. We're looking at, the last I heard was that if it gets to about 105 against the dollar, then that probably is the beginning of a bigger slide. So that really, we aren't there right now, but if it gets to that kind of level, that's the kind of crucial level for sterling.
Right, I know politics is not your métier, but I wondered what your thoughts are on Boris Johnson's swan song, his final speech as PM, comparing himself to a Roman statesman, going back to his plow. This is it, folks. It's a booster rocket that served its purpose. I mean, completely, blithely ignoring the kind of scandal that he engulfed his party in, blithely ignoring the cost of living crisis and the economic straits that his successor is facing. But I'm told we don't have time, perhaps tomorrow when you've had time to catch up with the news. Thank you, Michael. Now for business updates across the African continent, Rotus Adiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Tunu. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning to all of us. Just still on the Liz Truss matter, how different are the issues that they are facing from us? I mean, look at this, right? So they have a debt to GDP of 96%. Their year-on-year inflation, 10.1, a 40-year high. They've got an energy crisis. They've got a cost of living crisis. They've got a labor union crisis. How different from what we are facing here. Taxes, all right? I'm start kicking off with taxes because there's the issue of whether to cut taxes or increase them and what they'll do to the budget in the UK. But here, Nigeria, we've suspended the proposed telco tax. Issa Pantami, Minister of Digital Economy, Telecommunications, he said it wasn't carried along. He said it wasn't carried along, and he said that there's already enough of a burden on players in the telecommunications sector, and that, well, suspend the tax. And then I think something about him going to the president and then getting a suspension. It's just, the way.
Who proposed the tax in the first place?
Well, it came from advisors to his ministry, but he just says he wasn't carried along. That's what he said. And then he also said that there's too much of a burden, right? Now, stop laughing, Rufai. Zainab Ahmed, on the other hand, she says she has insisted that the tax has to be implemented because of our revenue issue. In fact, remember she had an exclusive interview with This Day newspaper, November 2021, where she uttered those famous words, Nigeria doesn't have a debt problem, Nigeria has a revenue problem. And we, on the Global Business Review, we have Ben Akabweze, Director General of the Budget Office, so looking very much looking forward to having a chat with him about this. So there's a back and forth between both ministries.
So both of them are fighting over a tax now.
Yeah, so that's the thing. See, this is why I'm drawing parallels with the UK. The fight between Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss over whether or not to increase taxes or reduce taxes, what to mean for the budget. Nigeria, this is what's going on because, she's saying that we need more revenue, so you got to tax them. He's also saying that, well, no, it's too much. And these two things apparently can exist at the same time. One, Nigeria's tax to GDP ratio is pretty low. I mean, I know we brought in 600 billion naira in quarter 1 or 2 for VAT, but at 7.5%, it's still one of the lowest on the continent. So that's one, your tax to GDP ratio is low. But then two, you've got the individuals and businesses that are overtaxed and complaining about multiple taxation. So it's amazing how those two things can exist in the same sphere. The answer, of course, is bringing more people into the tax net, widening the tax net, the informal sector, and formalizing it. From there, AMCON, there are growing concerns about the rising toxic assets that AMCON has on its balance sheets. And if we take a look at the number of issues, the Guardian looked at this, where you've got only about a recovery of about 1.4 trillion naira out of 5 trillion in 12 years. Litigation has held this up. And it's funny, we were talking about William Ruto's victory at the Supreme Court yesterday with Emmanuel Efeni and Mr. Kayode Tujeno. We're talking about how the justice system in Kenya moved quickly enough to ensure that the country can move forward. Meanwhile, AMCON isn't able to access, or rather collect more funds from the assets from the indebted companies and firms because of litigation. So that's one. Then the longevity of the corporation is being questioned as to whether or not it should be scrapped. Then three, the funding model. Banks, there's a levy that is placed on a number of banks that fund AMCON. And analysts are saying that, well, that's not fair. If this is a government entity that you set up to collect toxic assets, then you should find another way of funding. You shouldn't put that levy on banks. So that's, and then of course, the issue of even the assets themselves that have been collected, whether or not they should be completely written off and a loss should be taken on them. So that's that about AMCON. Then quickly on Kenya, Doctor, I saw your article, of course, in this newspaper. This Nairobi exchange gained about 42 billion shillings following the victory for Ruto at the Supreme Court. The shilling, though, the currency, we haven't quite seen that appreciated. It's still at a low of about 120 to the dollar, and this is from levels where it was about 110. So, but the market did gain; it was healthy. Investors actually reacted to that, and then finally, China's dominance of Kenya's fish market. Take a look at these stats. China controls about 80% of fish market in Kenya. So Kenya imported about 2.4 billion shillings in total globally. Norway, Uganda, Tanzania, China in 2021. A 10% increase from 2020. China accounted for 2 billion out of the 2.47 billion that they imported. And that is a growth of 25% year on year. And their market share, 80%. And they're already dominating in terms of electronics, household goods. I'm absolutely just fascinated with how China has just dominated the world. Right, it is
All right,
amazing.
So in concession, because Tunde didn't get a chance to say anything during Michael Wilson's time.
Tunde, what do you make of this
Tunde,
fish
you-
market?
How chivalrous of you.
Tunde, you go
I don't
first.
want to talk about the fish market.
Okay,
quite
what do
yet.
you
I
want
want
to
to
talk
talk
about?
about Zainab Ahmed.
Yes.
And what on earth is going on? Why is she constantly being contradicted? There was one issue on food prices are going up, food prices are going down.
Yeah.
That was a couple of years ago between her and the presidency. I believe that was Garba Shehu.
Yeah.
And then fuel
So-
subsidy.
Thank you. That
June
was the one.
2023.
Yeah.
I insist. And all of a sudden, the rug was pulled out from under her. What on earth is going on?
It's really unfair. She has been as honest as she can be about the fuel subsidy. She put her neck out there saying that they needed to be removed, and she was undermined by a government that's just not going in line with what, as the finance minister of Africa's largest economy, telling us that we have revenue issues. It's really unfair, and thanks for pointing that out.
I mean, Rutus, the shocking thing is how the Minister of Digital Economy said, I will go and tell the president.
Yeah, that was just, it's amazing how everything goes through.
And they should pull out a decision made for the country at a point. I mean, we know that it's going to impact the backline of telecom sector. And the reason why a lot of people complain is the fact that business environment, business climate is quite very difficult to work in Nigeria. It will ratchet up their costs. Obviously, the telco companies, they are not freebies. They're not Father Christmases. They will pass on the cost to the consumers. Yeah. So the tax is still coming to us invariably. And she had planned it out that, okay, I'll get some revenue to be able to put as a revenue blockage. But all of a sudden, it's cut. Probably, they could have negotiated, rather than 5%, maybe we could look at the 2.5% or something. So at least there's still a revenue that comes in and all of that. But the reason why you are having multiple taxation and at the same time, people are not coming into the tax net is because of the business environment.
Right.
It leaves much to be desired. A lot of bureaucratic bottlenecks. But are you surprised that China is serving us fish in Africa? I mean, since the time that Norway started giving us fish, and we started buying fish from Norway, have we been able to scale as regards providing fish for ourselves? We have not.
Well, not yet.
So, in terms of resource, and what is China not even dominating? And why are they even dominating in the first place? Because we're not doing anything. So even fishes in our sea, we can't go out there, get big trawlers to catch them and have fishing companies. All right? We can't farm fish domestically enough to meet our domestic consumption. We can't even farm poultry.
Yeah.
Do you know we still have to import poultry at some point because we're not meeting our domestic consumption? So we can't even feed ourselves, and then we complain that China is coming to eat our lunch. It goes back to that analogy that the weak must suffer what they must.
And don't forget the impact of insecurity on the agriculture sector, whereby farmers can. That
impact is not there in Kenya.
Right, true.
Kenya can farm flowers that they can send for Valentine's Day abroad, but just to farm their own fish, it's a big problem. So that's the economic dynamics of Africa, and that's why Africa must have a production mindset, and it must come out of the shackles that hold it back.
Well said. Agreed.
Let me start with Kenya. The story you brought about how, the markets have shown great confidence in the outcome of the ruling by the 7-man panel of Supreme Court justices yesterday, who, relying on Article 140, subsection 3 of the Kenyan Constitution, upheld the election of William Ruto on August 9 and as announced on August 15 as valid, legal, and constitutional. So the markets responded immediately. A lot of activity on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. So it was not just the court validating the election of William Ruto, even the markets, expressed confidence. Don't forget that Kenya is the biggest economy in East Africa.
Indeed.
And one of the concerns when the objection was raised to the outcome of that election was, are we going to have a 2017 situation whereby when the Supreme Court of Kenya annulled the election, it caused problems, even in the markets. It resulted in violence. There were issues, okay? So, but this time around, we see that, look, there seems to be one mind, with regard to the outcome of that election. Even in Raila Odinga's hometown, there is peace. The people are saying, just don't marginalize us.
Right.
We are behind you. And we think that the people of Kenya have spoken. So where democracy prevails, you find support from every angle. Now, to
Fish?
No, not fish. To the telecom tax.
Okay, the telco tax.
Now,
all right.
again, what we're dealing here is interministerial conflict in Nigeria. It's not. This is not the first time.
Yes.
2, problem of communication among ministers, which, of course, ultimately defeats the purpose of government. Now, the Ministry of Finance, Budget and Planning is saying that this is a matter of law. That the Finance Act 2020 already says there must be a 5% excise duty on telcos, right? But that it was not implemented. Now the Ministry of Finance, looking for revenue, wants to implement it, right? The Ministry of Digital Communication says we are not part of this because we were not informed. Ministry of Finance says everybody was duly informed, and in any case, it is the law. But Issa Pantami is saying this does not make sense. There's already a 2% excise duty. There is 7.5% VAT in place. Now, you want on top of that to put another 5% on top of the tax that persons who use data and telecom services are paying in Nigeria. Well, it will seem to have a point there because the public also rejected that proposition. The ALTON, the
Association of
licensed telecom operators of Nigeria, they also say this is not good for business. So for the first time, we see the Minister of Communications, standing on the side of the people. We have the Ministry of Finance saying we need money. So what is the way forward? Do we review the law? Because the law is not cast in concrete. The National Assembly can review the law and change it. Do we, as ordinary Nigerians, do we want to pay more for telco services? I don't think so.
No.
But the Minister of Finance says, well, they pay the same money in Ghana, in Burundi, in Uganda, in Malawi.
But honestly, where do we get the money from?
Why should Nigeria be different?
Where do we get the money from?
Okay.
This is the thing. We don't
in
want
Ghana,
to pay, but we don't want to borrow.
In Ghana, they introduced it. They called it e-levy.
Yeah.
It has not solved their problem in Ghana. What is the guarantee that it will help anybody in Nigeria except imposing more hardship? So on this one, we are on the side of Minister Pantami.
Okay.
Are we?
Well, I am.
No, but seriously,
I speak for myself.
in talking about, okay, we need to go.
Wait, sorry.
But talking about Nigeria,
Yeah.
I don't want us to be hardline very populist many times. Where are we now going to get the money from?
Remove
We
subsidy.
don't want them to borrow.
Borrowing is a problem.
We are looking at a tax
Taxes are a
possibility.
problem.
You are saying they should not pull it out. So where do we get the money to run the
Remove
country?
You can't
fuel
produce
subsidies.
money from the ether.
Okay.
You gotta get it from somewhere.
Okay.
I murdered his name earlier on. Kayode Otisoju.
Okay.
Arise News Analyst.
Is that what you were trying to say?
Yes, that's what I was trying to say.
Good
All right, I got it. All right, thank you.